Greetings from the Truth Lighthouse Center, where we do our best to shine the light of truth. I want to welcome you to our For This Cause series of lessons, where we're going to do our best to show you the scriptural reasons as to why and how we came up with the name For This Cause. Briefly touched on the name and where we got the name from in our background series where we talked about the organization. But now I want to show you some of the scriptures that led to how it came into being. If you have the time right now to read John chapters 11 and 12, that would be beneficial for you. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and just jump right in, and we're going to be talking about the story of Lazarus being raised from the dead. So we're going to start with John chapter 11, beginning with verse number 1, and I will be reading from the New King James Version if you are following along. And it says, "Now a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany of the town of Mary, and her sister Martha. It was that Mary who anointed the Lord with fragrant oil and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore the sisters sent to him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick. When Jesus heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it." We could say it in this way: Lazarus's sickness came to him for a cause that would bring glory to God. Come the end of the chapter, the Son of God would be glorified. But verse number 5 makes the point that Jesus loved all three of these siblings, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Yet after hearing the news that Lazarus was sick, Jesus ended up staying there for 2 more days. So why did he do that? What was his reason? Or shall we say, what was the cause for him to stay there? Let's pick it back up with verse number 11. It says, Our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may wake him. Then his disciples said to him, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get well. However, Jesus spoke of his death, but they thought that he was speaking about taking rest in sleep. Then Jesus said to them plainly, Lazarus is dead. We know Lazarus was a dear friend of the Lord, and no doubt it was assumed that upon hearing the news, Jesus would immediately rush to his friend's aid. But he didn't. He stayed there. And I often wonder, when things like this happen in the New Testament, what did his disciples think? What did the inner circle think when Jesus heard Lazarus was sick and yet he stayed there for 2 more days? Well, he said the sickness wasn't to death, so they probably didn't think it was a big deal to linger for a couple extra days. But when Jesus told them plainly that Lazarus is dead, no doubt they started to wonder themselves, why didn't they leave earlier? That was the question upon everyone's mind. Martha first, then Mary, then the comforters, all said, if you would have come on time, if you would have came when we called you, he wouldn't have died. They had faith in him. They knew that Jesus was able to heal the sick. There was no reason for him to have died. Why did Jesus not come? They didn't understand that there was a cause for his death. They didn't know what God was going to do. And because of that, they were disappointed. They were disappointed in Jesus. They were let down by him. And I believe knowing that is why the scripture says that Jesus wept. He knew they were disappointed. He knew they were let down. But obviously they didn't know the big picture. They didn't know what was coming. So try and keep that in mind. One of the benefits of having the Bible is we get to read the whole story, whereas, they didn't get to read. They didn't know that God was going to raise him from the dead. But we get to see these things. So when hard times come our way, we need to be mindful that it may be that the Lord has a cause for us going through those hard times. And if we wait on Him, we will realize and get to be a part of that cause. So we pick up the story where they led Jesus to the tomb. Beginning in verse number 38, it says, Then Jesus, groaning in himself, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, Take away the stone. Martha, the sister of him who was dead, said to him, Lord, by this time there is a stench, for he's been dead 4 days. Jesus said to her, Did I not say to you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God? Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead man was lying. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me, and I know that you always hear me. But because of the people who are standing by, I said this, that they may believe that you sent me. Do you see that? That they may believe. Now, when he had said these things, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he who had died came out bound, hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, Loose him and let him go. Jesus clearly demonstrates his power over death and the grave, which sparked faith in many. But isn't it mind-blowing? In spite of the miracles being done, there are people that look at the miracles, the good things God is doing with a different mindset, with a different perspective. And some of those people left there having seen that miracle, and they went to, if you will, tell on Jesus to the Pharisees. And then they had to meet together and decide what they're going to do about this man that is doing miracles and causing people to leave off following them in order to follow Jesus. Let's pick it back up in verse number 49. And one of them, Caiaphas, being high priest that year, said to them, You know nothing at all, nor do you consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and not that the whole nation should perish. Now this he did not say on his own authority, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation. And not for that nation only, but also that he would gather together in one the children of God who were scattered abroad. Then, from that day on, they plotted to put him to death. These leaders had no intent to allow their flock to get away. This is what happens when men start to think about people's allegiance belongs to them, and their focus is on their kingdom and not on God's kingdom. We need to be focused on God and God's will for our lives and allow His word to direct our steps. Now, if this wasn't bad enough, that they were plotting to kill Jesus because of the miracles he's doing and how it's affecting people ceasing to look up to them, now Jesus wasn't the only target. Anyone that gets in their way, well, let's pick it back up in John chapter 12, beginning with verse number 9. Now a great many of the Jews knew that he was there, and they came, not for Jesus' sake only, but that they might also see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. But the chief priests plotted to put Lazarus to death also, because on account of him many of the Jews went away and believed in Jesus. So these religious leaders, they were so focused on their own glory in this life that they failed to consider their own spiritual status in God's eyes. Not only did they want to kill Jesus for the miracles he did, they wanted to kill Lazarus also. Why? Because he was the recipient of the miracle. He received resurrection from the dead. And because he was an example of the miracles that God was doing, which was bringing faith, inspiring faith in people's hearts to believe God, that led them away from those leaders, and that they could not handle. So we want to conclude with this one passage in John chapter 12, beginning with verse 24. And this time I'm going to pick it up in the NLT. And it says, I tell you the truth, unless a kernel of wheat is planted in the soil and dies, it remains alone. But its death will produce many new kernels, a plentiful harvest of new lives. Those who love their life in this world will lose it. Those who care nothing for their life in this world will keep it for eternity. Anyone who wants to serve me must follow me, because my servants must be where I am, and the Father will honor anyone who serves me. Now my soul is deeply troubled. Should I pray, Father, save me from this hour? But for this very reason I came. That last phrase in the King James Version says, but for this cause came I unto this hour. The hardest road imaginable was set before him, but he had a cause. Jesus knew the crucifixion was just ahead, and it was going to be gruesome, but there was a cause, and he was willing. What was he willing to put his life on the line for? For the life, the spiritual well-being of others. His death, as it said, would produce a harvest of new lives. There was a cause, and he was willing to die for that cause. The Oxford Dictionary gives as definition of the word cause, the noun cause, two things. One, a person or thing that gives rise to an action, phenomenon, or condition. Number two, a principle, aim, or movement that, because of a deep commitment, one is prepared to defend or advocate. There are people who will support causes with minimal attendance or finance, as long as it doesn't cost them too much. There's just too many causes out there to support them all. The question is, what gives rise to action in you? To what do you have a deep commitment, motivating you to take a stand, no matter the cost? Jesus knew Calvary was just ahead, but yet he was willing to pay the price. He was willing to lay down his life for us, for our benefit, for our salvation. He went through it for us because we were the cause for him. And now, in that last passage we read, Jesus calls upon us to question how important life is to us in this world. To the Pharisees, we saw it meant enough for them to be willing to kill him and Lazarus. That's what life in this world meant to them. What does it mean to you? Are you willing? Is there something in this world that you're willing to lay down your life for? What is that cause? What is it to which you can declare, for this cause, I would be willing to die? Think about that until the next time. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you.